My name is Darren, 32 years old, and until last month I thought I had it all figured out. A successful software engineering career, a beautiful fiancée named Amanda, and our dream wedding we'd been planning for 2 years. Then came that unbelievable phone call from my mother asking me to cancel everything we'd worked for and hand over our wedding fund to my brother Tyler. Again, the same brother my parents had already taken a second mortgage for. The same brother who always came first. Before I dive into how my own family tried to destroy the happiest day of my life, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and hit that like and subscribe button if family drama has ever left you speechless. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Lansing, Michigan, there was an unspoken hierarchy in our family that became clearer with each passing year. My parents, Robert and Susan, had 2 sons, me and my younger brother Tyler, who was 3 years my junior. From the outside, we probably looked like the perfect American family with our modest 2-story home, neatly trimmed lawn, and annual summer vacations to the lake. But inside those walls, the dynamic was painfully obvious, even to my young mind. Tyler was everything my parents seemed to want in a son. Athletic, charismatic, and effortlessly popular, he drew attention wherever he went. By age 10, he was the star of his Little League team, with my parents attending every single game, cheering from the bleachers, with homemade signs and team-colored face paint. My father would spend hours in the backyard practicing pitches with Tyler, their laughter drifting through my bedroom window while I worked on science projects alone. I was the opposite of my brother. Studious, introverted, more comfortable with books and computers than baseballs and team sports. In 8th grade, I qualified for the state mathematics competition, an achievement that warranted just a quick good job and a pat on the shoulder. The competition fell on the same day as one of Tyler's regular season games. There was never any question about which event my parents would attend. "Your brother needs the support more," my mother explained. "You'll be fine on your own, Darren. You always are." The pattern continued throughout our childhood. When Tyler needed new baseball equipment, top-of-the-line gloves, personalized bats, specialized cleats, the money appeared without question. Meanwhile, I saved my allowance for months to buy my first programming books and computer parts, assembling my first PC from discounted components, while Tyler received a brand new laptop for getting a single B+ amid his usual C's. Christmas mornings told the same story. I vividly remember when I was 15, and Tyler 12, he unwrapped a professional-grade mountain bike, a new smartphone, and designer clothes. My gifts, practical items, socks, a calculator, and a single video game I had mentioned months earlier. I pretended not to notice the disparity, burying my disappointment behind a practiced smile. The preferential treatment extended beyond material things. Tyler's infractions were minimized or excused entirely. When he was caught drinking at 16, my father laughed it off as boys being boys. When he crashed the family car at 17, they replaced it within a week. When his grades slipped dangerously low, threatening his graduation, my mother spent nights helping him complete makeup assignments, while my own academic achievements went uncelebrated. I learned early on that the path to my parents' approval was a road I would never successfully travel. So I charted a different course. I threw myself into academics with singular focus, not just to excel, but to escape. My bedroom became my sanctuary, my computer, a gateway to a world where merit mattered more than charm. I joined online programming communities, built websites for local businesses, and saved every dollar I earned. By senior year, my strategy paid off. I received a full academic scholarship to Michigan State University, an achievement that finally seemed to register with my parents, if only because it meant they wouldn't have to contribute to my education. The day I moved into my dorm was the first time I felt truly free. The 2-hour distance from my childhood home might as well have been 2,000 miles. During college, I maintained minimal contact with my family. Holiday visits became shorter each year. Phone calls grew less frequent. I immersed myself in computer science, securing competitive internships each summer, rather than returning home. While my peers complained about demanding workloads, I thrived on the meritocratic environment where effort yielded proportionate rewards, a refreshing contrast to my family dynamic. After graduation, I landed a job at a promising tech startup in Chicago. The starting salary wasn't impressive, but the equity options and growth potential were. I worked 80-hour weeks those first few years, climbing the ranks as the company expanded. By 28, I had moved to a senior position at a larger tech firm, with a salary that afforded me a comfortable lifestyle and the ability to begin building real savings. It was at a tech conference in San Francisco 4 years ago that I met Amanda. She was presenting on UX design innovations, confident and brilliant, in a room full of industry veterans. I was instantly drawn to her sharp mind and warm smile. After awkwardly hovering near her booth for nearly an hour, I finally worked up the courage to introduce myself. Our conversation flowed effortlessly from professional topics to personal interests, and by the end of the conference we had exchanged numbers and made plans for a proper date when we discovered we both lived in Chicago. Amanda was different from anyone I'd ever met. She listened, truly listened, when I spoke. She celebrated my achievements without qualification. And when I eventually shared stories about my family dynamics, she didn't dismiss my feelings or tell me to just get over it as previous girlfriends had done. Instead, she validated my experiences and helped me understand that what I'd grown up with wasn't normal or healthy. Our relationship blossomed over the next 3 years. We moved in together after 18 months, buying a modest 3-bedroom house in a developing neighborhood. Amanda's relationship with her own parents was warm and supportive, which initially made me uncomfortable. I had no model for what healthy family dynamics looked like. But gradually her parents embraced me as one of their own, showing me what unconditional love could look like. Last year, during a hiking trip in the Colorado mountains, I proposed to Amanda at sunrise on Maroon Bells Peak. I had carried the ring in my pocket for 3 days, waiting for the perfect moment. When she said yes, tears streaming down her face as the first rays of sunlight illuminated the mountainside, I felt a happiness I never thought possible. We spent the drive back to our cabin discussing wedding ideas, both excited to create a day that would reflect our relationship, thoughtful, meaningful, and joyful. We agreed on a budget of $40,000 from our joint savings, an amount that would give us the wedding we wanted without compromising our financial goals. When I called my parents to share our engagement news, their response was tepid at best. "That's nice, honey," my mother said before quickly changing the subject to Tyler's new job at a sporting goods store. "He's going to be a manager soon," she added proudly. I ended the call feeling that familiar sting, but pushed it aside, focusing instead on the future Amanda and I were building. Amanda and I approached wedding planning with the same collaborative spirit that defined our relationship. We created spreadsheets, researched vendors, and spent weekends visiting potential venues. After touring 7 different locations, we fell in love with Lakeside Manor, a restored 19th-century building with manicured gardens overlooking Lake Michigan. The venue wasn't the most expensive option, but it perfectly captured the elegant yet relaxed atmosphere we wanted for our celebration. "I can already picture us saying our vows with the sunset over the water," Amanda said, squeezing my hand as we walked the grounds. The venue coordinator showed us photos of previous weddings, string lights twinkling in the garden trees, dinner served in the glass-enclosed veranda, dancing in the historic ballroom with its original hardwood floors and crystal chandeliers. We settled on a guest list of 120 people, large enough to include important friends and family, but intimate enough to actually speak with everyone. Amanda and I agreed on every major decision together. We chose a color scheme of deep burgundy, navy blue, and gold accents, seasonal flowers that wouldn't break the budget, and a menu that featured elevated versions of our favorite foods rather than generic wedding fare. For music, we hired a string quartet for the ceremony and cocktail hour, followed by a DJ who understood our eclectic taste, promising a mix that would appeal to guests of all ages while avoiding tired wedding cliches. We even planned a special first dance, taking private lessons to prepare a choreographed routine to our song "Come Away With Me" by Norah Jones. Amanda's dress shopping experience was something she'd dreamed about since childhood. She invited her mother, sister, and 2 best friends for a day of appointments at bridal boutiques, eventually finding the one, a fitted lace gown with delicate beading and a modest train. She refused to let me see even a photo, insisting on preserving that traditional moment of surprise. For my part, I selected a tailored navy suit rather than a traditional tuxedo, wanting to feel comfortable while still looking appropriately formal. Amanda and I chose simple platinum bands for our wedding rings, valuing quality and timelessness over flash. As the plans came together, our excitement grew. We mailed save-the-date cards 10 months before the wedding, followed by formal invitations at the 6-month mark. We secured our photographer, videographer, florist, and baker with carefully considered contracts. By 5 months before the wedding date, we had placed non-refundable deposits totaling $15,000. Money well spent, we thought, to secure the vendors we wanted. Our wedding date, June 15th, was circled in red on our kitchen calendar. Just 4 months away, it represented not just the celebration itself, but the beginning of our married life together. We'd even booked our honeymoon to Greece, a 2-week adventure exploring Athens and island hopping through Santorini and Crete. Throughout the planning process, I maintained my typical financial discipline. We had set aside the $40,000 for the wedding from our savings without touching our emergency fund or retirement accounts. Our mortgage payments on our modestly priced home were well within our means, and we had no credit card debt. We were by any reasonable measure making responsible financial decisions while still allowing ourselves to have the celebration we dreamed about. As RSVPs began arriving, my parents' minimal involvement became increasingly noticeable. My mother had declined Amanda's invitation to the dress shopping expedition, claiming a scheduling conflict. My father hadn't responded to my emails about rehearsal dinner options. When they did communicate about the wedding, their comments often carried subtle digs. $40,000 is quite a lot to spend on just one day, my mother remarked during one of our infrequent phone calls. Your cousin Jennifer had her wedding at the Knights of Columbus Hall, and it was perfectly nice. Don't you think all this fuss is a bit much? My father asked when I mentioned our dance lessons. Nobody really cares about that stuff. I did my best to brush off these comments, attributing them to generational differences in wedding expectations. Amanda noticed my disappointment, but helped me focus on the positive aspects of our planning. This day is about us, she reminded me. We're creating this celebration for ourselves and the people who truly support our relationship. I nodded in agreement, but couldn't quite shake the persistent hope that somehow for this one important day, my parents might show genuine enthusiasm for a milestone in my life. Still, I pushed these concerns aside, determined not to let old family dynamics overshadow the happiness I'd found with Amanda. The call from my mother came on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday evening in February. Amanda and I were in the kitchen. She was trying a new pasta recipe while I sorted through the day's mail. My phone lit up with my mother's name, a rare enough occurrence that I felt a momentary tension before answering. Darren, honey, how are you? My mother's voice had that artificially bright quality that immediately put me on edge. In my experience, this tone preceded either criticism or requests. I'm fine, Mom. Just getting ready for dinner. I put the call on speaker so Amanda could hear something we'd agreed to do with family calls to avoid misunderstandings later. Oh, that's nice. A pause. So how are the wedding plans coming along? Getting close now, aren't you? I raised my eyebrows at Amanda, surprised by my mother's sudden interest. Yeah, about 4 months out. Most of the major decisions are made. And everything's booked. Deposits paid and all that. Most of it, yes. Why do you ask? Oh, no reason, she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. I was just curious about how much you've spent so far. These things add up, don't they? I tensed, sensing the conversation shifting into uncomfortable territory. We've been careful with our budget. Everything's under control. That's good. Another pause. Have you talked to your brother recently? And there it was, the real reason for the call. Not for a couple months. Why? Well, he's going through a bit of a situation right now. My mother's talent for understatement was remarkable. Over the next 20 minutes, the full picture of Tyler's situation emerged, carefully extracted through my increasingly direct questions. Tyler's sporting goods store, the business venture my parents had proudly announced at every family gathering for the past 2 years, was failing. Not just struggling, but catastrophically underwater. He had apparently overextended from the beginning, leasing an oversized retail space in an expensive area, stocking high-end inventory that wasn't moving, and hiring too many staff before establishing a customer base. He had such a vision, my mother sighed. It's not his fault the economy in that area hasn't supported it. But poor business decisions were just the start. As my mother reluctantly revealed more details, I learned that Tyler was $175,000 in debt, a combination of business loans, maxed-out credit cards, and personal loans from friends that carried questionable terms. He had also fallen behind on tax payments for the business, creating potential legal issues beyond the financial disaster. "The stress has been difficult for him, my mother," continued her voice, dropping to a near whisper as if sharing a shameful secret. "He started visiting the casino just to unwind at first. But then, the gambling. Of course there was gambling. The pieces were falling into place now. Tyler had apparently developed a serious addiction, initially using gambling as an attempt to solve his financial problems, then spiraling deeper as losses mounted. Your father and I didn't know how bad it had gotten," she insisted. "Tyler kept saying he was about to turn things around. He just needed a little more time, a little more help. That help had come in the form of my parents taking out a second mortgage on their home, the house they had nearly paid off after 30 years. They had given Tyler $120,000 in a desperate attempt to save his business and clear his most pressing debts. We thought it would be enough," my mother said, her voice cracking slightly. "But it was gone so quickly. The business suppliers needed to be paid then, there were the tax issues, and some of those people he borrowed from were not very patient. The money had disappeared within months, swallowed by the black hole of Tyler's combined business failure and gambling addiction. Now he was facing bankruptcy, potential legal consequences for the tax issues, and as my mother finally revealed, his marriage was falling apart. Jessica has taken the children to her mother's house," she said, referring to Tyler's wife and their 2 kids, ages 4 and 6. "She's threatening divorce if he doesn't get help, but he's so focused on saving the business. He says it's his only chance to fix everything." Throughout this conversation, I noticed my mother's subtle but unmistakable language choices. Tyler's problems were described as unfortunate circumstances happening to him, not consequences of his choices. There was a passivity to the narrative. Tyler was being buffeted by external forces rather than creating his own disaster. "That sounds really serious." I acknowledged, making eye contact with Amanda, who had stopped cooking to listen. "I'm sorry he's going through that. Is he getting professional help for the gambling?" My mother made a dismissive sound. "He doesn't have time for that right now. He's working 16-hour days trying to save the store." I took a deep breath. "Mom, it sounds like the store isn't salvageable. Maybe the best thing would be to cut losses and focus on his addiction and family." "You don't understand the business world, Darren," she replied sharply. "Tyler has invested everything in this store. It's his dream." I bit back, a reminder that I had actually built a successful career in a competitive industry while Tyler had jumped from job to job before this failed venture. Instead, I asked, "So why are you telling me all this now? Is there something you want me to do?" The question hung in the air. My mother's response was carefully vague. "Well, we're all family, aren't we? And family supports each other through hard times. Your father and I have done everything we can. We're tapped out completely." "I see," I said, though I wasn't sure I did yet. "It's just that, well, we've been thinking about priorities," she continued. "About what matters most in life. You know, a wedding is just one day, just a party, really. But your brother is facing real issues that could affect the rest of his life." The implication was becoming clearer, but still, she wouldn't say it directly. The conversation circled around with more details about Tyler's dire circumstances, more minimizing of my wedding plans, and increasingly obvious hints about what they wanted from me. Yet the call ended without an explicit request. My mother simply saying they would talk more soon and that my father wanted to have a family dinner that weekend. After hanging up, I stood motionless in the kitchen, the mail forgotten in front of me. "Are they seriously suggesting what I think they are?" Amanda asked, breaking the silence. "I think they want our wedding fund," I replied, still processing the conversation. But they didn't quite have the nerve to say it outright. The sick feeling in my stomach wasn't just about the implied request. It was the familiar pattern reasserting itself: Tyler's needs, automatically outranking mine, the expectation that I would step aside once again. But this time it wasn't just a childhood competition or a high school achievement being overshadowed. They were eyeing the foundation of my future with Amanda. "They can't possibly expect us to cancel our wedding," Amanda said, abandoning the pasta sauce that had now burned on the stove. That's insane." "Welcome to my family," I replied, the bitterness I thought I'd overcome seeping back into my voice. "Tyler first, always." The invitation to Sunday dinner came via my father, who called the following day with a gruff insistence that felt more like a summons than a request. Your mother's making pot roast. Be here at 5. Bring Amanda. No room for discussion or decline. I debated making an excuse, but ultimately decided to go, if only to clarify exactly what my parents were asking. Amanda agreed to accompany me, though her expression conveyed clear apprehension. "We'll set boundaries," she assured me, as we drove to my childhood home that Sunday. "Whatever they ask, we're a team. We decide together." I nodded, grateful for her support while dreading what lay ahead. My parents' house looked the same as always: tidy front yard, fresh paint, welcoming exterior that masked the complex dynamics within. As we pulled into the driveway, I noticed Tyler's truck already parked at the curb, confirming my suspicion that this family dinner had a specific agenda. My mother greeted us with forced cheerfulness, hugging Amanda a beat too long, while my father gave me a firm handshake. Tyler sat in the living room, a beer already in hand, despite his supposed financial and marital crisis. He looked disheveled, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing a wrinkled button-down shirt that hung loosely on his frame. He'd clearly lost weight, his once athletic build now bordering on gaunt. "Hey bro," he said with a weak smile. "Congrats on the engagement. Little late, I know." Dinner was an exercise in strained politeness. My mother served her typical Sunday fare pot: roast mashed potatoes, green beans, rolls, while maintaining a stream of superficial conversation. She asked Amanda about her work, though clearly not listening to the responses. My father discussed recent neighborhood developments and the early spring weather. Tyler remained mostly silent, picking at his food and occasionally checking his phone. The only hint of the underlying tension came when my mother mentioned the wedding, asking innocuous questions about the venue, while my father and Tyler exchanged meaningful glances. I noticed Tyler's jaw tighten whenever Amanda enthusiastically described an aspect of our plans. After dessert apple pie that no one seemed to have the appetite for, my father cleared his throat. "Darren, we need to have a family discussion," he announced. "Amanda, would you mind giving us some privacy, Susan? Why don't you show her those garden catalogs you were talking about?" Amanda looked at me questioningly. We had agreed to stay together for any discussions. "Actually," I said, "anything you need to say can be said in front of Amanda. We're getting married. We make decisions together." My father's face darkened. "This is family business, son." "Amanda is family," I insisted. "Or she will be in 4 months." An uncomfortable silence descended until my mother intervened with a tight smile. "Perhaps it would be best if we spoke to Darren alone first, and then included Amanda once we've sorted things out." Amanda squeezed my hand under the table. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'll be right in the other room. We'll talk after." Reluctantly, I nodded, and Amanda followed my mother into the living room, leaving me at the dining table with my father and Tyler. As soon as the women were out of earshot, my father leaned forward. "Son, we're in a serious situation here. Your brother is in trouble." "So I've heard," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Mom mentioned some business problems and gambling." Tyler flinched at the direct reference to his addiction, while my father frowned. "It's more complicated than that," my father continued. "The point is, we're family, and family helps each other out. Your mother and I have done everything we can. We've put our retirement and our home on the line. Now we're asking for your help." "What kind of help?" I asked, though I already knew. My father and Tyler exchanged glances before my father spoke again. "We've been thinking about your wedding plans. All that money for just 1 day seems excessive given the circumstances. We think it would make more sense for you and Amanda to have a simple courthouse ceremony instead." Though I'd been expecting it, hearing the words spoken aloud sent a jolt through me. "And what would happen to our wedding fund?" I asked, my voice steady despite the anger building inside me. "It would go to Tyler," my father said bluntly, "to give him a fighting chance to save his business and his family." "I'd pay you back, bro," Tyler interjected, speaking directly to me for the first time. "Once the store turns around, which it will with enough capital." I stared at my brother, noting how easily the promise came to his lips. How many similar promises had he made to my parents, to his wife, to the creditors now threatening him? "The wedding fund isn't enough," my father continued. "We're also asking for an additional $20,000 loan from your savings, and we need you to co-sign on a new business loan for Tyler." The audacity of the request left me momentarily speechless. They weren't just asking me to give up my wedding. They wanted me to drain my savings and tie my financial future to Tyler's demonstrably poor business judgment and active addiction. "This is insane," I finally said. "You're asking me to cancel a wedding that's 4 months away, disappoint Amanda and all our guests, forfeit thousands in non-refundable deposits, empty my savings account, and put my credit on the line for a failing business." "Family comes first, Darren," my father responded sternly. "Blood is thicker than water. Your brother needs this. It's just money and a party for you. For Tyler, it's his entire life." "What about my life?" I countered, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. "What about the commitments I've made to Amanda and our future together?" "Amanda will understand if she really loves you," my mother chimed in, apparently having been listening from the doorway. "A woman who truly cares about her husband puts family first." Tyler leaned forward, his expression, a practiced mix of contrition and entitlement that I recognized from countless childhood incidents. "Look, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. You've always been the responsible one, the one who had it together. I'm not like you. I need this help, and honestly, you kind of owe the family. Mom and Dad paid for your school supplies, your food, your—" "Are you serious right now?" I interrupted, unable to contain my disbelief. "I had a full scholarship for college. I've been financially independent since I was 18. I bought my own car, my own computer, paid for my own apartment. Meanwhile, they gave you everything, including a down payment on your house, and now, apparently, a second mortgage to bail out your business." "We've always supported both our boys equally," my mother insisted, fully entering the dining room now. "That's a lie, and you know it," I replied, surprising even myself with the directness of the accusation. Years of carefully repressed resentment were bubbling to the surface. "Now you listen here," my father began, his face flushing with anger. "Your brother might lose his children if we don't get this sorted out. Jessica has already taken the kids to her mother's. Is that what you want, to be responsible for breaking up his family?" "I'm not responsible for any of Tyler's problems," I said firmly. "And emotional blackmail isn't going to change that." "We could lose our house, Darren," my mother added, tears welling in her eyes. "Everything we've worked for gone because we tried to help your brother. Don't you care about that?" "Of course I care," I replied, feeling the weight of their manipulation bearing down on me. "But why is this suddenly my responsibility to fix Tyler created this mess? He gambled away $120,000 that you gave him. How would another $40,000 or $60,000 be any different?" "It's just one day versus your brother's whole life," my father repeated, pounding his fist on the table for emphasis. "What kind of selfish person chooses a party over family?" I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I need some air," I announced, walking out of the dining room and through the front door without waiting for a response. The cool evening air hit my face as I stood on the porch, breathing deeply and trying to process the ambush I'd just experienced. After a few minutes, I heard the front door open and close. Amanda appeared beside me, slipping her arm through mine. "I heard most of it," she said quietly. "Your mom wasn't exactly subtle about keeping me away from the conversation." "I'm sorry you had to experience that," I replied, embarrassment mixing with my anger and frustration. "Don't apologize for them," she said firmly. "You ready to leave?" I nodded, and without saying goodbye to my family, we walked to the car and drove away. In the safety of our vehicle, I finally let out the emotions I'd been containing. I can't believe they actually expected me to agree to that. To just hand over our wedding fund and savings like Tyler has some divine right to it. "It's beyond inappropriate," Amanda agreed, her own anger evident. "Your brother has a gambling addiction. Giving him money isn't even helping him, it's enabling him." We discussed the situation for the entire drive home, trying to make sense of my family's request and my own conflicted feelings. Part of me was enraged at their audacity, while another part still carried the childhood need for their approval and love. "We don't have to decide anything tonight," Amanda said as we arrived home. "Let's sleep on it, get some perspective." But sleep didn't come easily. I lay awake most of the night, memories flooding back: Tyler receiving a new bicycle while I got school supplies, my parents attending his games while missing my academic competitions, the constant message that his needs and wants superseded mine. The patterns established in childhood were playing out again, only now with much higher stakes. The next 2 weeks brought an escalating campaign of pressure that tested the limits of my patience and resolve. It began with daily phone calls from my mother, each conversation a carefully orchestrated blend of guilt manipulation and occasional direct attacks. "Your father barely slept last night, worrying about the house," she informed me on Monday. 40 years we've lived here, Darren. 40 years of memories possibly gone because you won't help your own brother. Tuesday brought a different tactic. Tyler's children missed their daddy. Little Emma asked when she could go home yesterday, "Is your wedding cake more important than your niece's happiness?" By Wednesday, my father had joined the offensive, his approach more blunt. "I raised you to put family first. I guess those values didn't stick." I stopped answering their calls after that, allowing them to go to voicemail instead, but the pressure campaign merely adapted. Soon, other family members began reaching out, flying monkeys dispatched to wear down my resistance. Aunt Patricia called to remind me how family supports family in times of need. Uncle Dave texted that he was disappointed to hear I was turning my back on my brother. Even my cousin Jennifer, she of the Knights of Columbus Hall wedding, sent a lengthy email explaining how she'd postponed her honeymoon when her sister needed help with medical bills, the unsubtle implication being that I should be willing to make much greater sacrifices. I might have withstood the family onslaught alone, but Tyler took the invasion to new levels. On Thursday morning, he showed up at my workplace, the tech firm where I'd built a solid professional reputation over the past 4 years. He waited in the lobby, telling the receptionist he needed to speak with me about an urgent family matter. Mortified, I took him to a nearby coffee shop rather than allowing the confrontation to unfold at my office. "You need to reconsider, Darren," he said without preamble. "Mom and Dad are beside themselves. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. Is that what you want? For him to have a heart attack because you're being stubborn?" "I'm not the one putting stress on Dad," I replied evenly. "You created this situation, Tyler, not me." His expression hardened. "So you're just going to let my life fall apart, let Jessica take my kids, let the business I've poured everything into go under. Some brother you are." "Have you considered getting help for your gambling?" I asked, keeping my voice low despite the anger building inside me. "That seems like the actual issue here." "I don't have a gambling problem," he snapped back. "I made some bad bets, trying to solve cash flow issues. That's business, not addiction." The classic denial. I recognized it from research I'd been doing on gambling disorders since my mother's initial call. "Look, I can't give you the wedding fund," I said firmly. "Those deposits are paid, contracts are signed. But maybe I could help in other ways. I could connect you with financial counseling, maybe look at your business plan." "I don't need your business advice," he interrupted. "I need capital. Fast. The wedding fund is the quickest solution. You and Amanda can still get married, just do it at the courthouse like Dad suggested." When I refused again, he stormed out, leaving me to return to work distracted and frustrated. The next day, a barrage of texts arrived from my mother, photographs of Tyler's children, with messages like "Emma and Liam miss their home" and "These faces are counting on family to come through." The emotional manipulation was as transparent as it was effective. Each message sent a spike of guilt through me despite my rational understanding of the situation. The weekend brought no respite. My father called Saturday morning with a new level of vitriol. "You've always been selfish, Darren," he said, his voice cold. "Always thinking about yourself first. We raised you better than this. Or thought we did." The irony of this accusation coming from parents who had consistently prioritized Tyler's desires over my needs might have been laughable if it wasn't so painful. On Sunday, my parents escalated their threat, informing me they would boycott the wedding entirely if I didn't reconsider helping Tyler. "We cannot in good conscience celebrate while your brother loses everything," my mother declared. The family divide was growing. My aunt on my mother's side called to say she stood with my parents and wouldn't attend either. Meanwhile, 2 of my cousins on my father's side reached out privately to express support for my position, having witnessed Tyler's irresponsibility firsthand over the years. Amanda's parents, who had heard the full story, were firmly in our corner. "This is emotional blackmail," Amanda's father said during Sunday dinner at their home. "You're right to stand your ground." Through it all, Amanda remained my steadfast support, though I could see the toll the situation was taking on her as well. What should have been an exciting final countdown to our wedding day had become a stress-filled ordeal. "I hate seeing what this is doing to you," she told me one night as we lay in bed, another day of familial pressure behind us. "This should be a happy time for us." The siege continued into the second week. I consulted with our wedding venue about the possibility of cancellation, learning that we would lose 80% of our payments, nearly $12,000, without recovering anything. Our other vendors had similar policies. A meeting with our financial advisor confirmed what I already knew: emptying our savings to help Tyler would significantly compromise our financial security. And co-signing on a loan for someone with active addiction issues would be extremely high risk, she cautioned. You could end up responsible for the entire amount. Conversations with friends provided outside perspective that reinforced my decision to stand firm. My college roommate Malcolm, now a therapist, was particularly clear. They're asking you to set yourself on fire to keep Tyler warm. That's not reasonable or healthy. The stress began affecting other areas of my life. I had trouble concentrating at work, missed deadlines on 2 projects, and snapped at a colleague during a meeting. Sleep became elusive, with late-night ruminations about family duty competing with my commitment to Amanda and our future. Just when I thought the situation couldn't escalate further, it did. Tyler showed up at our house one evening, clearly intoxicated, pounding on the door and shouting loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "You think you're better than everyone," he yelled when I opened the door. "Mr. Perfect with his perfect job and perfect fiancé. You've always thought you were better than me." Amanda called the non-emergency police line while I tried to calm Tyler down, eventually convincing him to leave before officers arrived. The incident left us both shaken, particularly Amanda. "I'm trying to be supportive," she said afterward, her voice trembling slightly, "but I never signed up for this kind of family drama." The comment hit me hard. Was my family's dysfunction going to cost me the relationship that mattered most? The final straw came 3 days later. My mother called Amanda directly at work, something she had never done before, and suggested that if Amanda truly loved me, she would be the one to propose the courthouse wedding. "A woman who really cares about her husband's family would make this sacrifice," my mother told her. "Maybe Darren would listen to you." When Amanda relayed this conversation to me that evening, something inside me snapped. The manipulation had crossed a line, attempting to drive a wedge between Amanda and me. My mother's words echoed those of emotional abusers everywhere: "If you really loved me, you would do what I want." No more. No more guilt, no more manipulation, no more sacrificing my happiness and future on the altar of Tyler's irresponsibility. The moment of clarity came unexpectedly. I was driving to work the following morning, mentally rehearsing arguments against my family's latest tactics, when suddenly the weight of it all became overwhelming. I pulled over to the side of the road, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. For too long I had been responding to their demands, defending my position, explaining my reasoning as if I needed to justify my right to have my own wedding and maintain financial security. I had been playing their game by their rules, and it was a game designed for me to lose. Sitting in my parked car, I made a decision. I would meet with my parents one final time, but on my terms. No Amanda to target, no Tyler to create drama. Just me, facing the people who had shaped me through both love and neglect, setting boundaries that were decades overdue. I texted my father, "I'll meet you and Mom tomorrow at 2 p.m. at Riverside Coffee downtown. Just the 3 of us. One conversation, then this ends one way or another." His reply came quickly, "We'll be there." That evening I prepared methodically. First, I created a spreadsheet documenting every instance I could remember where my parents had provided significant financial assistance to Tyler versus me, from childhood through adulthood. The disparity was even more stark than I'd realized. Over the years, they had given Tyler approximately $230,000 more than they had given me, not including the recent second mortgage. Next, I drafted a financial analysis of what accepting their proposal would mean for Amanda. And me: lost deposits, additional wedding costs, for rescheduling impact on our emergency fund, and house down payment, potential credit score damage, from co-signing a likely-to-fail business loan, and the precedent it would set for future financial demands. Finally, I researched Tyler's situation more thoroughly. A former classmate who worked in commercial real estate confirmed that Tyler's store location had been a notorious failure spot for 3 previous businesses. An online search revealed that Tyler's business had multiple complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau. His gambling wasn't just occasional bad luck. He had been banned from 2 local casinos for disruptive behavior when losing. Armed with facts rather than just emotions, I arrived at Riverside Coffee 5 minutes early the next day. I selected a table in the corner, away from other customers, but still in a public space where any dramatic outbursts would be witnessed. My parents arrived precisely at 2. My father's expression grim, my mother's eyes already glistening with preemptive tears. "Thank you for coming," I began before they could speak. "I have something to say, and I need you to listen completely before responding." My father started to object, but my mother placed a hand on his arm. They sat silently as I unfolded my prepared notes. "For as long as I can remember," I said, my voice steady, "there has been a clear hierarchy in our family. Tyler's needs, wants, and problems have always taken precedence over mine. I've documented some examples here." I slid the first printed sheet across the table. "This isn't about jealousy or sibling rivalry. It's about a pattern that continues to this day." My father glanced at the paper, then pushed it aside. "That's ridiculous. We've always treated you boys equally." "The numbers don't lie, Dad," I replied, tapping the document. $230,000 more to Tyler over the years. That's not equality. "Different children have different needs," my mother interjected. "Tyler needed more support." "I understand that perspective," I acknowledged. "But now you're asking me to sacrifice something deeply important to me, my wedding to Amanda, to once again bail out Tyler from problems he created himself. You're asking me to drain my savings and put my financial future at risk by co-signing on a loan for someone with an active gambling addiction. That's not reasonable." I placed the second document on the table. "This is what your request would actually cost Amanda and me. Not just the wedding fund, but all these other financial impacts." My mother barely glanced at it. "Sometimes family requires sacrifice, Darren." "Yes, it does," I agreed, "but sacrifice should go both ways. What sacrifices has Tyler made to address his gambling addiction? What sacrifices have you and Dad made beyond financial ones? Have you considered that giving Tyler more money might actually be harming him by enabling his addiction?" My father's face darkened. "You're not a parent. You don't understand what it's like to watch your child struggle." "You're right, I'm not a parent," I conceded. "But I have done research on addiction, and every expert agrees that financial bailouts without addressing the underlying problem make addiction worse, not better." I placed the third document before them. "This is what I've learned about Tyler's business and gambling issues. His store location has a history of failed businesses. He has customer complaints I suspect you don't know about. And he's been banned from casinos for his behavior." "You investigated your own brother." My mother's voice was sharp with disapproval. "I researched the situation before making a major financial decision," I corrected. "Something Tyler might consider trying." I took a deep breath before continuing. "Here's what I'm willing to do. I won't give Tyler the wedding fund or empty my savings. I won't co-sign any loans. But I will help him find professional treatment for his gambling addiction. I'll connect him with a legitimate financial counselor. I can introduce him to contacts who might offer him employment if the store closes. In other words, I'm willing to help him build a sustainable future rather than temporarily postpone consequences." My parents exchanged glances clearly, not expecting this approach. "That's not what he needs right now," my father finally said. "He needs capital to save the business." "The business isn't salvageable," I replied firmly. "And throwing more money at it, especially my money, won't change that." "So that's it." My father's voice rose, attracting glances from nearby tables. "You're refusing to help your brother when he needs you most." "I'm refusing to enable him," I clarified. "There's a difference." "After everything we've done for you," my mother began, tears now falling freely. "All the sacrifices we've made." "Mom," I interrupted gently, "I've shown you the numbers. You and Dad have given Tyler far more than you've ever given me. I've been financially independent since 18. I put myself through college. I built my career without assistance. I'm not asking for retroactive equality. I'm simply declining to once again put Tyler's problems ahead of my own life." My father stood suddenly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I never thought I'd see this day. My own son turning his back on family when we need him." "I'm not turning my back on family," I replied, remaining seated and calm. "I'm setting healthy boundaries." "Boundaries." My father nearly spat the word. "Is that some psychobabble Amanda taught you? Family doesn't have boundaries, Darren. Family is about being there for each other no matter what. Even when it means enabling addiction. Even at the cost of my future with Amanda." "Yes," he thundered. "That's what real family does." The coffee shop had gone quiet, other patrons now openly watching our confrontation. I kept my voice level, refusing to match his intensity. Then I guess we have different definitions of family, I said, and different ideas about love. Real love isn't about endless sacrifice by one person. It's not about always putting someone else first at your own expense. It's about mutual support and respect. My father leaned forward, his face flushed with anger. You have a choice to make right now, son. Help your brother, or you're no son of mine. The ultimatum hung in the air between us. In that moment, looking at my father's angry face and my mother's tear-stained one, I felt a strange sense of calm. The threat that would have devastated me as a child now clarified everything. Then I guess I'm not your son anymore, I replied quietly. I'm sorry it came to this. I stood, gathered my documents, and walked out of the coffee shop, ignoring my mother's calls to come back. In my car, I sat for several minutes, processing what had just happened. There was grief, certainly the final severing of the hope that my parents might someday see me clearly and love me for who I was, rather than what I could do for them or for Tyler. But beneath the grief was something unexpected: liberation. I drove home slowly, thinking about what to tell Amanda. She met me at the door, her expression anxious. How did it go? She asked as I hung up my jacket. They disowned me, I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Or I disowned them. I'm not entirely sure which. Amanda's eyes widened. Oh, Darren, I'm so sorry. I'm not, I realized aloud. I mean, I'm sad about what it represents, the final acknowledgement that they'll never be the parents I needed. But I'm not sorry I stood my ground. For maybe the first time in my life with them, I didn't cave to the pressure. I didn't put Tyler first. Amanda wrapped her arms around me, holding me tightly. I'm proud of you, and I'm here no matter what. That evening, I drafted a clear, factual email to my extended family, explaining my position and the outcome of the meeting with my parents. I didn't vilify anyone or make emotional appeals. I simply stated that I would not be providing financial assistance to Tyler, but had offered help with addiction treatment and financial counseling. I explained that my parents had given me an ultimatum, and I had chosen to maintain boundaries. I ended by saying I would welcome attendance at the wedding by any family members who wished to come, but would understand if they chose not to. Within hours, responses began arriving. Some were predictably critical, echoing my parents' perspective. Others were surprisingly supportive. 2 cousins and an uncle wrote to say they had witnessed the pattern of favoritism for years and respected my decision. My Aunt Linda, whom I'd always felt close to, called to say she and her husband would definitely attend the wedding. The most unexpected response came from Tyler himself late that night. I'm sorry about what happened with Mom and Dad. I never asked them to disown you. That's messed up. I'm still pissed you won't help with the money, but I get why you're saying no. Maybe we can talk sometime. Just us. It wasn't an apology for his behavior or an acknowledgement of his addiction, but it was a small opening, a tiny crack in the facade of entitlement he had maintained throughout the crisis. I replied simply, I'm willing to talk whenever you're ready, and my offer to help with treatment resources stands. Over the next few days, Amanda and I refocused on our wedding plans, determined not to let family drama overshadow the celebration we had worked so hard to create. The future of my relationship with my parents remained uncertain, but we had a wedding to plan and a life to build together, one based on mutual support rather than one-sided sacrifice. A week after the coffee shop confrontation, Tyler texted asking to meet. We arranged to talk at Lakeside Park, neutral territory, with enough privacy for an honest conversation but public enough to discourage any dramatic scenes. I arrived early, claiming a bench, overlooking the water, uncertain what to expect. Tyler appeared right on time, looking marginally better than during our family dinner. He was cleanly shaven, though the dark circles under his eyes remained. He sat beside me, and for a long moment we both stared at the lake in silence. The store's done, he finally said. I'm declaring bankruptcy next week. I nodded, unsurprised but sympathetic to the pain evident in his voice. I'm sorry it didn't work out. Yeah, well, he shrugged. Turns out location matters more than I thought, and inventory management, and cash flow projections. A rueful half-smile crossed his face. Pretty much everything you tried to tell me when I first started. I remembered offering business advice when he'd first announced the venture, suggestions he'd dismissed as irrelevant to the real world of retail. What about Jessica and the kids? I asked. Tyler sighed heavily. She's giving me one last chance, but only if I get help. He paused, picking at a loose thread on his jacket. I have a problem, Darren. The gambling. It's not just stress relief. I can't stop thinking about it. Even now sitting here broke, I'm thinking about pawning my watch for one more chance at the tables. The admission surprised me. It was more self-awareness than I'd expected. That's the first step, you know. Recognizing there's a problem. Yeah, that's what the guy at the GA meeting said yesterday. You went to Gamblers Anonymous. I couldn't hide my shock. Just one meeting. He looked away. Don't make a big deal about it. I don't know if I'll go back, but it helped to hear other people talk about the same thoughts I have. Makes me feel less like a complete failure. We sat quietly again, watching a pair of ducks navigate the water. I broke the silence first. Look, I meant what I said. I won't give you money, but I want to help. I have a friend who specializes in addiction counseling. He'd see you at a reduced rate. And I know people at 3 different companies who might have positions you'd be qualified for. Tyler nodded slowly. I might take you up on that. The job connections anyway. The counseling. He shrugged. I'll think about it. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. We talked for another hour more honestly than we had in years. Tyler admitted feeling jealous of my success, while simultaneously resenting my attempts to help. I acknowledged my own resentment over our parents' favoritism, while recognizing that it hadn't exactly made Tyler's life better in the long run. Have you talked to Mom and Dad? I asked eventually. Yeah, they're pretty devastated about the whole thing with you. Mom cries a lot. Dad's mostly angry. Are they coming to the wedding? Tyler shook his head. Not planning to last, I heard, but who knows? They might come around. We parted with an awkward half-hug, not having resolved everything but having taken a small step toward a healthier relationship, one based on honesty rather than old patterns and parental influence. In the weeks that followed, wedding preparations continued. RSVPs arrived, showing a family divide. My parents' siblings and their families mostly declined, while my father's brother and his family, along with my mother's sister Linda, confirmed attendance. Most painful was my grandmother's note saying her health wouldn't permit her to attend, a transparent excuse given her appearance at a cousin's wedding the previous month. Amanda's extensive family, and our many friends, more than made up for the gaps in my family representation. The final guest count stood at 92, fewer than our original estimate, but still a respectable gathering. As the wedding week arrived, I tried to process my complicated emotions about my parents' absence. There was sadness, certainly, but also a growing acceptance. I had made my choice, prioritizing my relationship with Amanda and my own well-being over unhealthy family dynamics. If that cost me my parents' presence, it was a painful but necessary trade-off. Amanda's parents stepped up beautifully, with her father offering to handle traditional father of the groom duties, and her mother helping with last-minute arrangements that my mother might have assisted with. Their kindness underscored what healthy family support could look like. The morning of our wedding dawned clear and warm, perfect June weather for our garden ceremony. I was getting dressed in one of the venue's preparation rooms when my phone buzzed with a text. From my mother, "We're here." Just 2 words, but they sent my heart racing. I finished securing my tie with shaking hands and went to find them. They were waiting in the venue's lobby, my mother in a conservative blue dress, my father uncomfortably tugging at his suit collar. Neither smiled when they saw me, but they hadn't turned around and left either. "You came," I said simply. My father nodded stiffly. "Your mother wanted to be here." I understood the subtext. He was here under protest, accompanying my mother, rather than coming of his own volition. But they were here. It was something. "Thank you," I said, meaning it. "It means a lot that you came." An awkward silence followed, broken, when the wedding coordinator appeared to tell me it was time to take my position for the ceremony. The wedding was everything Amanda and I had hoped for. She was breathtaking in her lace gown, moving down the aisle on her father's arm, as our string quartet played Canon in D. The celebrant led us through our vows beneath an arch of burgundy and white flowers, the lake sparkling behind us in the afternoon Sunday. We exchanged rings, spoke promises we had written ourselves, and sealed our commitment with a kiss that felt like coming home. At the reception, my parents sat quietly at their assigned table, neither participating fully nor creating any disruption. During my speech, thanking guests for sharing our day, I made brief eye contact with my father. For just a moment, I thought I saw something soften in his expression. After dinner, while Amanda was chatting with college friends, my father approached me at the bar. "Nice ceremony," he said gruffly, ordering a scotch. "Amanda looks beautiful." Thanks, Dad, I replied, surprised by the olive branch, however small. He sipped his drink, looking out at the reception rather than at me. Your mother and I have been talking. About Tyler. About everything. Another sip, another pause. We may have made some mistakes. From my father, this qualified as a monumental admission. I waited, not wanting to interrupt whatever process was happening. Tyler's agreed to that gambling treatment program, he continued. And he's interviewing for a job at Peterson Manufacturing next week. That's good, I said carefully. I hope it works out for him. My father nodded, finished his drink, and placed the glass on the bar. Well, congratulations, son. I hope you'll be happy. It wasn't a full reconciliation, not even close. But it was a beginning, a small acknowledgement that something had been wrong in our family dynamic and might now have a chance to heal. 2 months after the wedding, as Amanda and I settled into married life, signs of change continued to emerge slowly. Tyler had secured a position as an assistant manager at a sporting goods chain, not his own business, but a stable job with benefits and a clear path for advancement. More importantly, he was attending GA meetings twice weekly and seeing a therapist regularly. My parents were adjusting to their new reality as well. The relationship remained strained, but my mother had begun calling every other Sunday, brief, somewhat stilted conversations, but contact nonetheless. My father occasionally added a few words at the end of these calls, his pride still preventing more direct communication, but no longer maintaining complete silence. The most significant change wasn't in my family members, but in myself. I had learned that standing my ground didn't mean abandoning family, it meant establishing healthy relationships based on mutual respect, rather than obligation and guilt. I had discovered that saying no to unhealthy demands wasn't selfish, but necessary for everyone's well-being. Amanda and I discussed these evolving family dynamics during a weekend hike in the forest preserve near our home. The summer heat was beginning to fade into early autumn crispness leaves, just starting to hint at the changes to come. I never thought Tyler would actually get help, Amanda said as we paused to drink water. That's a real surprise. Me either, I admitted. But hitting rock bottom can sometimes be the best thing for someone with addiction. He couldn't pretend anymore that things would magically get better. And your parents. Do you think they'll ever really understand why you stood your ground? I considered this watching a hawk circle overhead. I'm not sure. They might never fully get it. But they're starting to respect the boundaries, and that's what matters most. Do you regret any of it? She asked, standing up to them, even with how painful it was. No, I said without hesitation. I wish it hadn't been necessary. I wish they could have seen on their own how unfair their request was. But I don't regret choosing us, choosing our future over old patterns that weren't healthy for anyone, including Tyler. Amanda squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you. It takes courage to break patterns that go back to childhood. That evening, I reflected on the journey of the past several months. The family I was born into would likely never be the idealized version I had longed for as a child. My parents would probably always have a special soft spot for Tyler, and old habits of favoritism might never completely disappear. But something fundamental had shifted. I had discovered that loving family doesn't mean enabling destructive behavior or sacrificing my own well-being. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others is to say no. With Amanda, I was building a new kind of family, one based on partnership and mutual support rather than obligation and guilt. Our relationship had emerged stronger through the crisis, proving we could face difficult challenges together without losing sight of what mattered. The journey had cost me something, the comfortable illusion that my parents would always protect my interests, the fantasy that Tyler might one day acknowledge the preferential treatment he had received. But it had given me something far more valuable, the freedom to define family on my own terms, and the confidence to build relationships that nourished rather than depleted me. As I look toward the future now, I feel a sense of peace that once seemed impossible. The path forward isn't perfectly clear, and there will undoubtedly be more challenges with my birth family. But I know now that I can face those challenges from a position of strength and self-respect, maintaining boundaries while leaving room for healing and growth. Sometimes, the hardest person to stand up for is yourself, especially when doing so means disappointing people you love. But sometimes that's exactly what everyone needs, whether they recognize it or not. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family obligations and your own well-being? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. And if you know someone who might be struggling with similar family dynamics, share this video. Sometimes just knowing you're not alone can make all the difference. Thank you for listening. And remember, healthy boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary for genuine relationships to thrive.